our topics today. So first topic obviously is mom life, right? Being a mother and the roles and the expectations from society, cultural expectations as well. So share, and y'all don't have to like obviously all go at once, right? But share with me a little bit about, when going into motherhood, right? What was your expectations before you actually started doing motherhood? Do you want to go first since you're the new mom? You're the pressure. The pressure?
So I became a mom 8 months ago, and I think you know what you're getting yourself into, but then when you're into it, you're like, oh my goodness, what is going on? So I know there's a lot of things like people kind of like warn you about or give you like a heads up, but then there's a lot of things that people don't warn you about or is not talked about enough. But definitely, like, I think the biggest thing is I would always hear from my mom, you'll understand when you have kids, or you don't know what a mother's love is until you have kids. And I'd be like, okay, Ma, like, whatever. And I would just tell her that, like, okay, it's the same, blah, blah, blah. But once you have a baby, you're like, wow, this love is different. Like, this human is yours, and, you know, God has given you this human for, like, this time on earth. And I didn't understand like a mother's love until I had like Ellie.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome to feel, right? It's a very overwhelming feeling. It's usually the most overwhelming when you see your baby for the first time. For me, I can totally remember those feelings. So you said there were some things that you didn't expect. Any of those things that you want to share?
I think definitely just how much feedback you would get from, like, you know, family, friends. Like, I was not prepared for that. And some of it is like, it comes with love, but some of it comes like unnecessary. And I think, you know, I speak for, like, you know, we're Latinas, and there's a lot of things in our culture that is expected from you or has been passed down, and it's up to you to kind of like break those cycles and say, you know what, that worked back then, but right now it's not going to work, or I'm not doing that with my family or my husband and things like that. So I think also like how it changes your relationship, you know, your marriage. There's a lot of, like, I think in our world they prepare you, or you prepare yourself, okay, do I have everything for the baby? Do I have everything for the baby shower? Do I have everything like postpartum? But you forget, like, oh wait, I change even when, or my marriage changes when I become a mom. So I think that was a big like adjustment too, and I think even now we're still adjusting to it. And I think you're gonna still adjust when as your babies grow more and more.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Meggie, I know I would like to call you a veteran mother, right? Okay, in the sense that you've got two little ones outside of the age of, you know, toddlers, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit more on the veteran side. You're, you know, moving into that next
I'll
stage.
take it.
I'm gonna give it to you because you're also a pro organizer. So I'm gonna give you all the what is it?
I'll take all the accolades.
All the accolades. So when she talks about the cultural expectations, can you relate to any of that as well?
Well, I'm really glad you touched on how it changes your marriage, because it absolutely, the dynamics of your home life are completely different, and we don't give that enough credit, or we don't bring that to the forefront of the conversations. But it's a whirlwind. I mean, what I would have known about motherhood before I was actually a mother would be like someone saying, hey, do you know what avocado tastes like before you've ever tried avocado? You can't explain the wonder that is avocado until you've had it.
Right.
And you really you can't possibly conceive how it really turns your world upside down until you're in it. And then you go, oh, this is what avocado is, or in our case, motherhood. So I'm glad that those are conversations we're, as a society, becoming more comfortable having, and we're allowing ourselves, especially through amazing things like social media, to say what the truth is, and say what's really going on.
You're right, because I think social media has given us that platform to be able to talk a little bit more openly to complete strangers, because normally in the Latin community we don't talk about our personal experiences, right? That's like a no-no. Which I always get conflicted with that, because we don't talk about it with strangers, but we love the chisme with our tias and primos and primas regarding our family members' lives, right? So it's always like a battle. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But as far any cultural struggles you had raising your daughters?
I mean, my grandmother stayed at home and raised all of her kids. My mother stayed at home and raised us. And so it was a very different world for me to conceive what being a mom and possibly working at the same time. I had no example of that, really. And I think I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself to, well, if I am going to work, because it's what I actually truly in my heart want to do, and I wanted to grow my company. It was where I felt God gave me the skills to do this amazing thing, and I can do it for other people, and it can be really transformative. And so I knew that I wanted to do that, but then I was like, well, that also means that I have to make everything perfect at home, and I have to learn how to cook, and I have to make sure the laundry's done, and my house has always got to be on the up and up. Otherwise, I'm not doing it right. And I think I set myself, especially when I had my first kid, to this standard that completely exhausted myself. It exhausted my marriage. It exhausted every other friendship I sort of still had. I mean, it created something I could never really attain. And when especially after I had my second, a little bit of a flip switched, because I was like, no, I still want to do this. God's insistent on me still being a mom, and so we're going to have to figure out a better way to collide these worlds.
A happy balance.
And I just let myself have the freedom to figure that out without really giving a shit what my mother did or my grandmother did. And that's amazing. I don't take anything away from the childhood that I had or that, they had, but that's not what God had intended for my kids.
For your journey.
And you have to allow yourself the freedom to find the balance that works for your family, and to hell with what everybody else thinks.
I agree. Totally agree with that. So Maricia, how about you, as far as some of those struggles, the cultural struggles and then society struggles, did you face? I know you went to school. You got higher education. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm one of the, I guess I'm probably the oldest one here. I'm a Gen X. So I grew up with the motto of girls can do anything, and with the go-getter attitude. And it was like, so I went into a male-dominated field, which was STEM, engineering and math and science, with the expectation that, hey, I can do this, I can do anything. And so I went into the field. I was a consultant, environmental consultant for over 12 years, and working with primarily men. And then of course I am pregnant with my first child. Coming back after 8 weeks was the hardest thing I ever had to do. And but there was I'm unfortunately I don't have any family that lives nearby, so that I can I don't have any help. So I had to just go back to work and put my child in daycare, and that was so hard for me, because again, my parents, they lived a block from my grandparents, and so I was raised by my grandparents, so I never, it was like there was always family that was raising us. So having to leave my child with complete strangers was the hardest thing for me, and culturally, that was like, I was, I guess, the first that ever had to do that, just leave your child with strangers. And so, but thankfully, I was able to, work that out, that, I could visit during lunchtime and so on. But it was a little difficult because I had to travel a lot in my job. And then, but we managed. Then came my second, and then it was more challenging because, again, and that's when I really decided that, I think we were talking about starting this, my company, the publishing company, and I was like, I think I need a job where I have flexibility, that I can work from home and still take care of my kids, and it was like, that was I guess what prompted us to go on and say, I can have both. I can be working, and I can be building a company, and so that was kind of like, that was like what pushed me towards beginning the company, because I needed that freedom, that flexibility.
It's all about that flexibility. This is something that I know we've been talking a lot about this year, 2022, obviously because of all the things we dealt with after COVID and all of those things that we're now still dealing with. Funny enough, Meggie just shared a post about that mom guilt regarding daycare, about, you know, feeling guilty about leaving your children in daycare. My personal experience, I was a daycare kid. My mom was a working mom. All I knew was daycare. So of course, when I became a mom and a working mom, my kids went to daycare. It was like, that's what you do, right? This is the, I guess you could say, the American dream, the American thing to do. But culturally, it really isn't always like that for everyone. And so, and I've realized that in having conversations with other women who've had that ability where family does have that tribe, right? That, you know, raising the families of the tribe raising the children, right? It's not just the mom or it's not just the grandmother, it's everybody's pitching in. So I really appreciate that post because of the fact that you know, talked about some things that we constantly, I think, are put in this mom guilt, especially like I'm Catholic, so guilt is like also a part of like just unfortunately, yeah, it's like one of those things like I'm still trying to heal from. But so definitely check out that post because it really hit home, especially for today. So I appreciate that. You know, we have to realize that we're not alone, right? We're all in this together. So we're gonna switch gears. Obviously, y'all are moms, but y'all are also entrepreneurs. The balance of that is kind of like a little